Hi, everyone. Hello and welcome. I'm Jessica. I'm with Literary Arts. Thank you all for being here this evening for our March One Page Wednesday. Today we are joined by our lovely host, Olufunke Grace Bankole, and our featured reader, Jenn Reese. Hi, thanks for being here. Before we get started, I'd like to open up this space with a land acknowledgement. Literary Arts is based in Portland, Oregon, and we are currently on unceded land. The Monoma, Cathlamet, Clackamas, Tumwater, Watlala bands, the Tualatin Kalpuya, and many other indigenous nations of the Columbia River occupied and operated on this land long before Western colonizers arrived, and many continue to do so today. Despite attempts of removal and erasure, these communities remain a strong and vital part of our future. Literary Arts recognizes that this acknowledgement is only a small step in affirming the ongoing contributions and presence of these communities, and we commit to engaging these communities more fully as we fulfill our mission. For those of you who are not familiar with Literary Arts, we are a nonprofit community-based arts organization with a 37-year history of serving readers and writers. Our mission is to engage readers, support writers, and to inspire the next generation with great literature. Our programs include Portland Arts and Lectures, programs for youth, the Oregon Book Awards and Fellowships Program, and the Portland Book Festival. We also offer reader seminars, writing classes, and free literary events like this one year-round. And you can check us out over at literary-arts.org. I also meant to say the Oregon Book Award ceremony is coming up on April 25th. And leading up to that event, we will also be having readings with our finalists. And you can find all of those on our website. Okay, now I'm going to introduce our host, Olufunke Grace Bankole. He's a 2020 Oregon Literary Fellow and is a first-generation American of Nigerian parentage. After graduating from Harvard Law School and completing a Soros Justice Advocacy Fellowship, she left law to write. Her works have appeared in Glimmer Train Stories, Michigan Quarterly Review, New Letters, and AG&I, among others. She won the Glimmer Train Short Story Award for New Writers and the Breadloaf Rona Jaffe Scholarship in Fiction at the Breadloaf's Writers Conference. She was also awarded a Ludwig Vogelstein, I told you I was going to mess that up, Foundation grant and a residency fellowship from the Anderson Center. Olufunke is near completing a novel and stories depicting how secrets, lies, and prophecies upend the lives of a Nigerian mother and daughter. That sounds awesome.
Thank you, Jessica. And thank you everyone so much for being here tonight. Thank you for welcoming me into this space. I'd like to thank the folks at Literary Arts for inviting me to host tonight, and Jessica for helping to facilitate this meeting. If I miss anything, Jessica will kindly step in and keep us moving along. So thank you in advance, Jessica. So I'm going to just read a short excerpt from my novel in progress, and then I will go ahead and introduce our featured reader, Jenn Reese. Up I go. So this is an excerpt from my novel, and in this scene, we are about to meet Sani, the father of the main character, Amina. Sani's entire life hinged on this one thing: his inability, even in the privacy of his own mind, to admit that he had been wrong to do the very worst things he ever did. The first, that he violated his wife, Esther. He refused to consider a crime because without it, he wouldn't have been able to marry her, and their daughter, Amina, would not have been born. The second, that he later married Amina's former classmate. Despite his daughter's objections, he certainly couldn't consider a crime because legally it wasn't, and no longer being married to Amina's mother or financially responsible for his children, he had been free to do as he pleased. Anytime he was confronted about either of those two things, he waved the words away with a smirk, intended to sear ridicule into the accuser. In all the years of getting away with things because he could, Sonny walked this world with the comfort of a man who believed he was above human justice. A place in his mind safe from outside consequence. This was where Sonny lived. That was until the one lie, the third worst thing he ever did, the telling of which, the doubling down on of which, and the shameless repetition of which had the trinal effect of destroying his relationship with Amina, alienating those who had wanted to believe him, and tormenting his mind with the thought that others now saw him for who he was. But before the ultimate lie, there was a young Sonny who, like most children, was lovable and promising. His parents wrapped him tightly in love. It was easy. Sonny was a stunning and wise child. 3 dimples pierced his high cheeks. His mother and father liked to tell anyone the things he said that were well beyond his age. But with the love of Sonny also came a dangerous permissiveness, the sort given to a child whose parents nurse unaddressed guilt. It was Sonny's mother, of course, who carried the weight of it. As she told it, her carelessness had led to the polio infection that left her only child partially paralyzed in his right leg. His limp reminded her of the damage she caused, sharing a spoon with him, not knowing she was infected, until later after her boy was deathly ill. When Sonny recovered, his parents were so grateful that he'd been spared, that whatever he wanted, he got. Thank you. That's my little excerpt. And now I'd like to introduce our featured reader, Jenn Reese. Jenn Reese Shive is the author of A Game of Fox and Squirrels, an NPR Best Book of 2020, a finalist for the Andre Norton Award and the Mythopoeic Award, and winner of the Oregon Book Award and Oregon Spirit Book Award. Their other publications include Every Bird a Prince, coming in 2022, the Above World Trilogy, and numerous short stories and essays. Jenn lives in Portland, and for more on Jenn and their work, more at jennreese.com. Now, Jenn, over to you.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. I really appreciate the invite and the amazing introduction. This is a really cool thing, and I hadn't known about it before now. So now I think I will be showing up more often. I'm going to read 2 short pieces tonight, and I didn't realize until 5 minutes before we started that they both take place or both have to do with houses. And I think that is not a shock because that is where I've spent the last couple of years. So I guess my subconscious was just writing about what it knew, I think. I don't know. The first piece is an excerpt, the first chapter of the novel I submitted for the fellowship. And it has already changed drastically since what I submitted, but we'll see how that goes. And the second piece is going to be, I guess I'll tell you when we get there, but let me just start with the first chapter of Puzzle House, which is a working title. And this is for middle grade audience, which is about 10 to 12 years old, that type of thing. That's what I write novels. Those are the novels I write. Okay, here we go. Chapter 1. On the day Perigi and their dad were to arrive at the house, it started to snow. Not a timid, fluffy snow with flakes content to drift to the ground and sink slowly into the earth. No, this snow fell with a driving need. It hurtled towards the ground, insatiable, intent on gobbling up everything. By the time Dad turned their sturdy hatchback onto the long, lonely road into the deepest part of the forest, 6 inches of deceptive beauty blanketed the trees and the street signs and the roads, and the snow wasn't even close to done. At 12, Perigi was a student of science, a firm believer in reason and facts and the natural laws of the universe. But if they weren't, they might believe for just a moment that the snow was trying to stop them from getting to the house, that it was telling them to stay away using the only method it had. Perigi turned down the radio, but didn't turn it off completely. Christmas carols sung by crooning men and jazzy, thick-throated women weren't Perigy's first choice of listening material, but the old-timey music seemed to calm their dad, and that was, as always, Perigy's top priority, snowstorm or not. Dad gripped the steering wheel with both hands and leaned forward, as if being closer to the windshield would somehow help him see the road. He frowned. Maybe we should turn back. For whatever reason, my video is... A surge of panic rushed up Perigy's throat. They swallowed it down and put on a big grin. Are you kidding? This is the perfect weather for an adventure. Keep going, Dad. I bet we're almost there. Besides, Grandma is counting on us. We told her we'd come. Perigy used to enjoy holidays with Dad. They'd watch movies in their PJs and play board games and take online classes together on whatever subjects Perigy wanted, though classes on at-home welding had been permanently banned after the incident 2 years ago. But Dad had been bad lately, and Perigy knew how the holiday would go if they were home. The two of them might partake in all the same activities, but Dad's smiles would be forced, his jokes half-hearted. And whenever Perigy turned away, Dad would sag like a teddy bear with too little stuffing. Sometimes he'd bounce back in a few days, but lately, Perigy realized they needed to try something different, something drastic. Then Grandma had called and asked for help fixing up her house. Dad rarely spoke about his mom, but he spoke about that house constantly. Not an inch of wood without some animal carved in it. You'd open a door and I swear some days it would go somewhere totally new. Grandma's house held the solution to Dad's doldrums. Perigy was certain. It was the missing piece of the puzzle inside his brain. And when they finally found that piece and slotted it into place, Dad would laugh easily again. And so here they were, driving through the middle of nowhere, racing a storm. We're almost there, Dad. I can feel it, Perigy said, just a little bit farther. The snow continued to fall, blurring the landscape and then erasing it altogether. By the time they pulled into the driveway, the world was a vast white sketchbook page, blank except for the tiny ink drawing of a house at its very center. Okay, that's the first chapter of the book. Thank you. And I will move on. So the second piece I'd like to read is a flash piece. I have been writing science fiction and fantasy short stories for adults for 20 years probably, and I love doing it. And I especially love flash as a form. I really like telling tiny little things. I have not yet sent this story out. I'm still working on trying to figure out how to make it not broken. Let's see how it goes. This is called Flowers with Teeth. My favorite part of a remodel job is the demo. Donning goggles and steel-toed boots and swinging a hammer like a goddamn whirlwind, taking a kitchen down to sawdust and tacks. But never in all my years as a contractor have I wielded sinew and bone and broken through an old wall to find flowers. Daisies, yellow dots of sunshine growing tall in the spidery darkness. At least I thought they were daisies, was reaching to take one in my hand when I saw tiny barbs along the petals, rows of razor teeth, sharp as a shark's. Pulled my hand back fast as anything, told my team to stand back. Molly cursed when she saw them. You want me to go grab the torch from the truck, Liz? No, I said, let's call it a day, full pay. I got no arguments at that, and they were packed up lickety-split. The flowers were just so damn surprising. Molly put a hand on my arm before she left, and I blushed, remembering the last time she'd touched me. She said nothing, just squeezed my arm and let me be. She'd always been good like that, even before the night we'd hit the bar too hard and my bed just right. Wasn't her fault I'd bolted in the morning like a scared-ass teenager, or that I was too much of a coward to look her in the eye now. I broke it. Whatever it was we were making before it had even become a thing. But that's what I was good at after all, breaking, shattering to dust. The homeowners were at their condo in the city during the remodel, so I grabbed my heavy coat and a bag of rags from the truck and made a bed right there on the chipped up kitchen tile. Slept like the faultless dead, better than I had in weeks, except that one night, of course, wrapped up in Molly. I woke sometime near 4, the only light, some fizzling street lamps reaching through the windows with pale fingers. The daisies that weren't daisies didn't seem to care one way or another about the sun, seemed pleased as punch in their shadow, as if they'd never even heard of plants needing water or light to survive. Some things do just fine without. But they'd taken advantage of the broken wall, and now there were flowers all around me, circling me up like a pretty pack of wolves ready to pounce. But if they wanted to hurt me, they'd had all night for it. As I sat there blinking sleep from my eyes, they swayed in the dead still air. Looking around that half-demolished kitchen, I had to wonder why the flowers didn't grow themselves toward the hollowed-out cabinets or the dining room, why they'd stuck close to me, the person who'd driven a sledgehammer through their home. I reached to touch one, expecting it to pull back, or else for those tiny barbed teeth to growl and grow. The petals shivered a bit, nervous. I gave them another chance to attack or curl up or cower. The little yellow thing stood its ground, so I brushed a fingertip along its edge. A barb poked me right away, painting a bright red bead on my skin. But pain was no stranger, and I stayed on touching it. The petal wasn't soft or smooth like an ordinary flower, which suited me just fine, as I'd touched plenty of those already in my life. And by the time I got to the second petal, the daisy was, I swear to heavenly God, leaning in like a cat. Maybe sometimes I was good at not breaking things too. The floor creaked, and then Molly was there with a flashlight, but not shining it on me or the daisies, just letting us sit in our darkness. Thought you might be here, she said. I see you made some friends. Yeah, I guess I have, I said, not looking at her. My heart, though, betrayed me like a 2-bit weasel, scrabbling around inside my ribs. You're bleeding, she said. It's nothing, I assured her. I don't mind prickly things. Me neither, Molly said, and she stepped carefully into the circle with me, sat down on my makeshift bedding, leaned her shoulder against mine. After a moment, I leaned back. I took her hand, lifted it up towards a daisy. Go slow, I said. They scare easy, but they're worth the patience. Molly chuckled. Don't I know it? That's all. Thank you for that.
Jenn, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. Let's show Jenn some love with reactions or in the chat.
It's okay. No one
That was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, and now we are going to start with the volunteer one-page readers. I have a couple of names that I've seen in the chat, but if you haven't had a chance to sign up, go ahead and just put your name in the chat or just say I want to read, and then I'll get to you as we go along. And we're just going to go in order.